came together as a founder team driven by the idea that diseases, for chronic autoimmune diseases, there is lack of safe oral drugs. Don't underestimate the need of new therapies. This is something which will grow. This is an area where we need more. There are so many things which are untreatable right now. This research is delivering the value, and protected by patents, I think we have the opportunity to earn the fruits. Our drug is the first molecule which is aiming to protect neurons from cell death. It's a must-own stock for everybody who's interested in biotech.
TipRanks presents Tip Talks, the only podcast where you can listen to the insights, discover the trends, and power up your investment portfolio. Investors, welcome to another episode of Tip Talks. Now, joining me today for a very special episode is Dr. Daniel Vitt. He is the CEO of Immunic. That's ticker symbol IMUX. Now, Daniel, I want to get right into it here with you and just throw the first question over to you, ask you about your personal story and how Immunic came to be.
Yeah, thank you, and happy to be here today and talk about Immunic and our story. And just jumping into it, so when in 2016, basically, we came together as a founder team driven by the idea that for diseases, for chronic autoimmune diseases, there is lack of safe oral drugs. So lack of drugs which are easy to use, which can really help patients to improve on these indications, on these diseases. So when I speak about autoimmune diseases and inflammation, I mean things like multiple sclerosis, like ulcerative colitis, dermatology issues, and so forth. So all of that we wanted to address with new technologies, with new molecules. And that was the crystallization point for that company. And it was, I think, the most important piece was really when our chief medical officer, Andreas, met Hella, our CSO, and myself. And so we more or less, we covered all the aspects of chemistry, biology, and medicine to bring these ingredients together. And based on that, we started then 2017. A couple of years later, I could say it was successful because now we are running a phase 3 approval study in patients suffering from relapsing multiple sclerosis, and a phase 2, a very advanced study in patients with progressive multiple sclerosis. So 2 areas where really there's a high unmet medical need. And really, so far I can say it worked out until that point of time. And now the company is at a different stage. So we are now looking to see the finish line. So to get to the success of these more advanced clinical studies, and hopefully seeing the drug approved very soon.
Walk us through a little bit of what these clinical studies entail. And, as investors, and I always say this, everybody's always trying to get rich by Tuesday. And I think we fail to actually recognize the process of a company that's actually right now where you are at, or where Immunic is at, where it really is in this growth phase. And it's going to take time, because what we're seeing, right, is a stock share price that's trading right now at about $1.48. And everybody wants a stock, right, that's going to pop to $50, $60. But walk us through this timeline. What does this whole process entail?
Yeah, it may be a Tuesday, maybe not next week. So yeah, clearly, I think the business model in healthcare, I think, as you know, is very, very special. What we do is we take risk, we make an educated guess, and we bring together the best technologies we can have to make it successful. And the hedge is huge. I think the idea is really bringing something for these indications I mentioned. This is something which is relevant for 100,000s of patients with a substantial annual revenue. So the peak sales potential for a drug in multiple sclerosis can easily be in the billions, can even be 3-4 billion of annual sales if things go well. The upside potential is huge. The problem with healthcare stock usually is it takes time, as you said. So this is nothing which we start today and read out on Tuesday. Honestly, we are advanced. I think the things we are doing already at the stage where we are set initially, we see the finish line. So we know, for example, for the phase 2 study in progressive MS, which is an indication where there is no treatment, for example, for secondary progressive MS approved at all. So that we will have data next April. And in our industry, I think next April is soon. And this could be, I think, and this is also our hope, such events can really be a transforming event. So it could really mean that the company value increases by a couple of times.
Sure.
So I don't care about the 148 right now because it's not time for selling, it's time for buying. And if things go right, we may sell it at a 10 times of where we right now. That's my expectation, or even higher than that. It's my personal expectation, and this is why we are driven here. And also the team at Immunic is driven by these two things. On the one hand, value generation, but on the other hand, also doing something good. So there is a high need, and we need to understand it's worth to develop these drugs for the patients.
Sure. Let me put you on the hot seat for a second here and ask you, so many investors can look into opportunities in the stock market. And of course, everyone wants to make money in the stock market. So therefore, some of us go down this route of investing, right, in an Immunic, where it's, a dollar something change and they're in it for the longer term. And others want to stray closer to, say, the J&Js, the Amgens, the Pfizers. I mean, they've already built their name. I want to toss this question over to you. Why would an investor want to join the Immunic team, if you will, and wait out, this timeline, whether it's April or even longer? What would be the biggest benefit? Of course, yes, there's upside potential in the stock, but as we like to say at TipRanks, like, how do we know who to trust?
That's a very good question. And so first of all, I think for these big ships, things are priced in. I think there's little volatility. The next big thing is the GLP-1 space, and that's priced in a Novo stock or priced in Lilly. Here is different. I think if you look on innovation, you need to look on the speedboats compared to the big tankers. And so what we are doing is we are addressing huge markets. The multiple sclerosis is really one of those big markets. So that could, for example, come to life, come to the commercial time, for example, with a partner or just by ourselves. And if the sales reach that level of billion or even more, then of course you can imagine that the value of the company is much higher than where we are right now. And this is the reason why I think investors should be interested in, for example, our stock or other same stories.
At TipRanks, we have the TipRanks smart scoring system. It's unique to TipRanks, and it ranges, as you may know, between 1 and 10. So any stocks that are rated, 1, 2, 3, versus the stocks that are rated on the 8, 9, or 10 scale have a vastly different trajectory from what we've seen. Now, that smart score factors in things like macroeconomics, what analysts are saying, what bloggers are saying, as well as insider trading movements, so on and so forth. And right now, Immunic has a smart score of a 1. And I want to attribute a lot of that to macro factors and some of the risks that we've been seeing in the macroeconomic factor and just where you guys are at. What are some of the biggest risk factors on your end that could lay rest and some comfort to some of us shareholders who are looking at that smart score?
I don't understand exactly the composition of your smart score. It must be wrong. Just stop kidding here. I think macro factors really are more. They were, I think, for our industry on the negative side in the last 2 years. They definitely improve. It's driven by the willingness to take risk. And healthcare, as you know, during Corona was the big growth part, and then it came in later substantially because of the going back basically. Now I think with the interest rate change, I think it's an important thing that people need to go more into these more rewarding stocks like healthcare, specifically drug development, where this is really a huge opportunity from my point of view. But there are two things. One is the economic, the stock market rationale, and the other thing is the development, the economic, the ecosystem of pharmaceutical development. Don't underestimate the need of new therapies. This is something which will grow. This is an area where we need more. We can't stop. We need to treat diseases. There are so many things which are untreatable right now. And this research is delivering the value. And protected by patents, I think we have the opportunity to earn the fruits. This whole system works very nicely. It's a big industry. Give you one example. The current market for multiple sclerosis is 23 billion a year. That's a huge thing. And we have a drug which makes a big difference. So we have factors of our drug. So for example, our drug is the first molecule which is aiming to protect neurons from cell death. So imagine you could look into your brain and really would prevent neurons in the brain to die for a reason which is linked to the disease, and you protect patients and increase the time until they worsen on the disability, or they remain longer independent with their lives. This means something to patients and has a huge commercial impact. So I think if I would judge the macro environment, there's more upside than downside from my point of view. So this is really a scenario, an area where I see a huge improvement. And to be more specific on our drug and the positioning in the MS space. So multiple sclerosis is really a frequent, very severe disease. And there are a couple of drugs approved. And currently the drugs are really focusing on specifically preventing the relapses. So this is, of course, limited to the subset of patients which have relapses. But there is an ongoing effect in the patient which is relapse independent, also more and more destroying these neurons. So neuroprotection means something real for the patients. And with our vidofludimus calcium molecule, which is in phase 3 in RMS and phase 2 in PMS, we have the opportunity for the first time to change that. If we imagine we get that approved, that's, as I said, a multi-billion opportunity. And what happened in the environment around us is that competitive molecules, which were developed by more big pharma companies, didn't work as expected. So the trend is more that we are benefiting from a less competitive market situation than where we are. So I imagine that this will also pay back in an increasing share price, a higher likelihood of success, and also a very interesting commercial opportunity, because I think that most big pharma companies who are active in the space would love to have something like our molecule in their pipeline in the future, which could mean there could be a potential to do something together. Or should really go up. Maybe not for next Tuesday, but definitely running into the last quarter of this year, because with the data readout in April, I clearly see it's a must-own stock for everybody who's interested in biotech.
What's interesting is I always use the smart scoring system actually, and the converse. To your point, the opportunity is actually, this is for all investors across the board, whether it is one of the bigger players, right, the J&Js, or an Immunic play, to get in an opportunity. And what makes something an opportunity is, in fact, when you have a lot of the factors right now working against the stock, if you will, and play it out for the long term, which is exactly what you said. And I love that you said that. Something I want to double down on, Dr. Vitt, is actually borrowing your lens, if you will, as the CEO. How do we borrow your patience so we can sit a little bit more comfortably in this time between now and April?
Yeah, I'm in that business for 30 years now. And this industry is a little bit of you need to really work long on. So it's like building planes or building rockets. It takes some time to do that. And then there's the big moment of launch, and either it works or it doesn't work. So high risk, high reward system. For our stock, I think the good thing is that we have already done a lot of de-risking in the past. So if I talk about the phase 3 study, which will read out in 26, clearly we had a wonderful phase 2 study. And that means that in the phase 2 study, we have proven the drug works in a statistical relevant fashion. So we did all the models around that and know the drug does what it should. And now we need to translate that in a big study with more than 2,000 patients in the phase 3 to test it in a very broad sense and to demonstrate, again, a high statistical benefit of the drug, and then ask for approval from the regulators. The risk profile already got very attractive over time. I think it was much more risky when we started 7 years ago. So that's the one aspect of that. And the other aspect is really quality needs time as well. So we can't shortcut. We really need to make sure we also don't run into pitfalls of underperforming. In our industry, it's super controlled. The regulators are watching what companies are doing. We need to be very mindful about the patients we have in the studies. So these things take time. We try to be very transparent to investors where we are and what we expect. So for example, we said we will have the data next April. We don't say it's around next April, it's next April. Well, it's coming. There as you may know, if you look back on what we did a PIPE investments in January of this year. So we raised money to be equipped with enough funding to achieve the milestones. So we are not looking to raise money before the data comes out. So if you want to be part of that, if you want to leverage that value potential here, you need to come in before the data readout. So, and if you tell me that the stock is cheap right now, then it's maybe the right time to buy the stock.
Now, I want to ask you a question about delistment from the NASDAQ. That was one of the risk factors that were there. Where do you stand now with the fears of delistment? Is there any fears there or not at all?
Not at all and never to my mind. It's wonderful to be at NASDAQ. We need that environment. We need the investors because it's a cash intensive industry with a huge payback. So this is the business model. You pay in something, you invest it into research to develop the value. And if you succeed, there will be a huge payback. So yeah, we need that. And that was never an issue.
Now, year to date, Immunic is down very nominally at 1.33%, but just in the past 5 days alone, it looks like the stock popped up by 18+%. What happened in the last 5 days? Why did we see such a gyration there in the right direction?
I think it's two things. First of all, we have a couple of good discussions with investors. So obviously somebody believed me. Secondly, I think we see the trends globally more that, as I said, that the macro environment is changing a little bit in our favor and expect that will improve until the end of the year substantially. So maybe timing is not too bad to read out in April because it gives the market a little bit of time to adjust and to make healthcare more the next thing to invest in. And you've seen that some of the parameters really just that money is more risk taking now than maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. Second quarter was pretty bad for healthcare in general, and so now I see things improving, but I think most may be attributed to the company itself, and that really it's undervalued, and people may recognize it's now time to buy.
I know I'm certainly, as I look at the Immunic page, seeing opportunity that's there for every investor to do due diligence on Immunic, on TipRanks. Just one last question, Dr. Vitt. Let's say April is a very successful month for Immunic and the whole team there. What's next? What's in the pipeline? What's in store for everybody?
Yeah, as I said, next April is just one of those important readouts. It's not the whole story, I think, and that could be transformative, but it's not the only thing. And I think the big phase 3 study, as I mentioned, readout in 2026. So you need even more time for that. But that's a study, as I said, which is really based on very thorough, very precise data obtained in the phase 2 before in relapsing MS patients. And we really believe the drug works there. And it's a 2,100 patient study. So that should be the trigger for approval. So for us, it's really the final transformative event for the company to really get it to a commercial stage. And you may have seen that we hired Jason Tadio recently, who's an experienced pharma manager coming really from the commercial organization. He was doing commercial sales and product launches for companies like Novartis and Biogen in the past. And he joined us because he believes we have a unique new asset in which could change the market environment. And that is something we want to develop until we reach the step of finalization of the phase 3 studies, of course. So it's a continuous process, maybe starting just recently, and the company is more evolving from a more research and development stage now to a pre-commercial stage, which is, I think, the first step of earning the fruits of what we did in the last years.
Sure. It really is that overnight success that took about 7 years, as you shared already. So it really does pay to be patient, as I always like to say. And Dr. Vitt, we'll have to have you back in April, back on with us to talk all about a couple of months that have passed by since and the successes that you've seen. And until next time, investors, we will see you all there.